So I am a fourth year PhD candidate in the Technology and Social Behavior program at Northwestern. I work in the NU Path Lab with Dr. Maya Jacobs. And very broadly speaking, my research kind of intersects both human-computer interaction, or HCI, health, and then my special interest in domestic violence or gender-based violence. My work is kind of in two major threads, I would say. The first is a lot of the community-based participatory research and work that I do out here in Chicagoland with local nonprofits and frontline workers in domestic violence here. And I'm working with them to design a novel adaptive intervention to address frontline worker burnout and secondary traumatic stress. It's one of the big challenges in their field, and I think there hasn't been a lot of innovation in it, so we're really excited to work together on that. And then the second thread, I think, is now reflecting on kind of the use of community-based and participatory methods to engage with communities that are less technical and maybe even AI skeptical, and try to bring them into the conversation about designing, deploying, evaluating AI technologies such that it aligns with what they really want, with their goals, needs, and values. And part of that comes from understanding where the skepticism and hesitance comes from, trying to understand the harm it's caused, mapping those out, what are ways that they envision using these tools, and also building their literacy and confidence so that they feel empowered to be able to critique these systems in ways that we can, as technologists, make it actionable and impactful.
Yeah, so I think it really came out of the fact that because I'm doing community-based work, I also provide digital safety and technology facilitated abuse trainings here in the Midwest, especially in Chicago, for advocates or survivors and frontline workers here. And there's a lot of interest of how AI impacts the domestic violence space, and also a lot of misconceptions or just fear. And I noticed that when people are making decisions out of fear to shut up technology from all parts of their life, it kind of isolates them and they still get impacted regardless. And so I think in my trainings, I noticed that what I really want is to make people feel empowered to be part of that conversation, to get a baseline understanding of technology and digital literacy, including AI. And
I kind of see that throughout my project where people are actually interested in using AI technologies in improving their well-being and other areas where they don't want to see it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think from that sort of conversation and the years that I've worked with this particular group here locally, at least in Chicago, I've seen that people are interested in more and more about AI, but they don't know where to start. And I think that there aren't any educational tools that are accessible or analogous to what they're doing in their field, even though they are very heavily feeling the impacts of it, right? They see the people who are impacted by an AI generated non-consensual imagery about sophisticated personalized spam and misinformation attacks, right? Undressing apps, all these things, and they have no voice and no agency to respond. And so I think I'm working on a project right now where we have a community advisory board developed. It's from a generous grant here from Northwestern. And I think part of the goals, in addition to guiding the intervention that I mentioned that we're working on, is also how can we build AI literacy and education into this cohort, mm-hmm. and see what they feel they, as frontline workers, as domestic violence experts, feel is necessary in education to understand AI. I would say that I think the entrance in HCI came first, at least academically. In my undergrad at Carnegie Mellon, I was very lucky to be in a very interdisciplinary program where they really encouraged you to explore different areas. My background's in economics and music art performance. It's these are not fields that typically ever intersect. Mm. But I think it just shows that I had a lot of interests. And I think when I took my first introductory programming class there, the project that I wanted to do was something like interactive. So I actually came to HCI through like the creative computing lens. I wanted to understand like how do you build an experience that's like interactive, that engages your senses, like movement, visuals, music, right? Kind of combining all those things. But I've always had a deep sense of understanding that the community around you really shapes who you become and who you are. And I think that one of my motivations for like economics was like understanding like inequality, right? Like the community around you, the infrastructure around you, how it's designed. Like these are all still parts of things that impact you as an individual. And the same thing is true for technology. And so I think kind of blending that thread of my life with like the academic surroundings that I was in at CMU. And then I also had really great mentors who were leading a project, Ken Holstein and Michael Medeo from CMU in my time there. We worked on a workforce development project on like understanding how technology is impacting providers' relationships with their clients in the community. And I was like, this is really interesting work. And like, I never thought about like technology through this framework mind. And so I was like, I want to learn more. And I was very thankful that they were also very supportive of like, yeah, go explore some more research and explore what's interesting. And I think it's interesting that like, even though I'm like more health aligned, I like found my way back anyway to like community-based work and working with providers. And so, yeah. I think that I feel like the thing that I love about at least the HCI+D, shout out to all the people there, is the fact that it is so interdisciplinary, and like even within HCI, there are so many different like subfields and sub things you could look at. So for example, I was thinking about this the other day, and it's like some departments, they often come from like a different school, right? So like some come from like health or informatics, some come from like more product industry design, maybe more from mechanical engineering. And I think the department here is really interesting because my program is in computer science and communication, and we do see that. But there are also so many people, like there's people working on like misinformation in health. There's people working on like elections, visualizations, like more ethnographic type work, like metacognition, design, engineering, interfaces, like health. There's just so many things happening here. And I find that really, really like intellectually stimulating and just really fascinating, because it's like you're also meeting the people who are passionate about that kind of work and like what their stories are, what their interests are. And oftentimes you get to learn more, I think. I like to think of myself as like a bridge, really. I think that's like, oh, do I know someone who knows something that would be cool for you? Like, how can we build a connection? And I think that's like what grad school is also all about, and like what our community is about. It's like building that connection. I think it's also very HCI in that sense too. It's like, yeah, it's like, where can I find someone who can support you in X, and even just like have a really cool conversation with. So I'd say the HCI+D really encapsulates that really well and brings all those people together. There's people who come from like psychology, like the management sciences, mechanical engineering, material sciences, so many things. So I think that's really one. And then I think like other labs, just to answer your other question of like places that I see myself, like the Center for Behavioral Intervention Technologies, or CBITS, in the downtown Chicago campus is really excellent for the expertise and like that whole world of like clinical psychology and clinical expertise and health and digital mental health. And then like separately also, but related, is like a lot of resources in the Feinberg School of Medicine as well that are about community-based work and like equity, and how do we create better, more impactful, more meaningful partnerships with like the world around us outside of academia, right? And like I think there's even still like many departments that I had wished and still want to reach out to, like especially with relation to my work. Like I think we have like the Family Institute here, right? I know they do some work as well with like domestic violence and batterers intervention programs. We obviously have like the Pritzker School of Law. There's like so many different avenues that you could take your work. And so like I think that's just what makes this place a really great like location to do work and research and meet new people. Most proud of? I feel like that is a really hard question because there's different aspects that I'm really proud of. And I don't know if it's like a specific project, but I do think that like doing community-based work is difficult. It's very time consuming. I think it can be often emotionally intensive because like you feel very closely to this community that you've worked with, whether you're a part of it or adjacent. And I think that like, at least for myself, I think what I am most proud of is just like being humbled and being in the presence of these people who have like very different priorities compared to me as a researcher, someone in academia, or even as a PhD student. And I look at them do their work and I'm like inspired. And so I don't feel like there's a particular project, but I think just the journey that I've taken with the people that I work with. I work with like Colleen Norton, who's the director of special projects at the network. I think that like the work that we've accomplished together, and even the work that I had done at the very beginning with Can Win, with my mentor, Denise Huang, and a bunch of other people there, has like really set the foundation. And I think it's just so heartwarming to see how far we've come. And like in every project, we have participants who will like email me and tell me like, thank you for caring, like thank you so much for being here and talking with me and giving me space, or thank you for the research you're doing. And that is very like obviously gratifying, but at the same time, it's like I wish it didn't have to be that way. So I think the thing that does make me proud and will make me proud is like building this intersection like more strongly that isn't always focused on I think in HCI, a lot of domestic violence work has traditionally focused on like security, privacy, abuse, which is completely like validated and like necessary. But I think there's other research that needs to be driven from other people in that like ecosystem, like service providers, advocates, like caregivers, all these other people who are kind of the backbone to providing services to like, often our most vulnerable people. So I don't really have a good answer for like specific project. Like, I think like it was a really great moment that this past Chi in 2025, like the paper that I published with my co-authors about identifying certain features and functions that service providers and frontline workers want in digital app-based interventions for burnout and empathy-based stress and these kinds of challenges. Like it was awarded a honorable mention, like best paper honorable mention. And so I think that was very gratifying in the sense that like, oh, my community is now seeing like where there's value, and like now that there's this award, regardless of what it was, like more people will see it and more people will start thinking about the different communities that we have yet to engage with, right? So I think that was it. And like, I'm just really excited for the community advisory board that we're building. We're calling it a more fun name because I think it like feels a little stiff. It's a little more relaxed and a little more like community oriented and driven. But I'm just really excited for like what we'll do there. So maybe this question I can answer better like in a year.